In Destiny, they say the ancient act of Olo flawlessing is a rite of passage, a way in which only the most grizzled of guardians break their limits by overcoming a gauntlet of despair and agony, completing a dungeon without a single death, a harrowing journey that will reforge a guardian, rebuilding them from the ground up until they are unrecognizable as they mantle the duty of godlike power by demolishing an activity balance for 3 players on their own. It is what many would consider one of the main steps on the road to Destiny mastery, with only the best of the best showcasing why the cream will indeed always rise to the top. Now, over the course of my unhealthy Destiny addiction and my relentless pursuit of mastery, I have constantly pushed the boundaries of what is possible, making it near tradition to undertake the Olo flawless every chance it rears its ugly head in order to prepare me for my next challenge. But if you were to ask me what I think about Warlord's Ruin, the only thing I would tell you is that much like the hit 2019 movie Cats, in which God had to strike us down with a plague of biblical proportions for our hubris, this dungeon is also going on my suicide note. And what theoretically should have been a casual stroll up a mountain wound up reminding me that Warlock Jump is indeed cock and ball torture, as every little ledge or tiny rock became a tripping hazard, and much like an unenthusiastic janitor, the scorn couldn't be dick to put a wet floor sign. Uncle Bungie did their best to make sure that this dungeon is a sick practical joke for those of the Warlock variety, where your dress-wearing protagonists were the only punchlines. Mama! So join me, Papa Rye, as we attempt to slay a dragon in meatball form, finally catch a prison sentence for putting that wood chipper under the McDonald's ball pit, and slip off of every surface on this mountain as if it was coated in fucking butter, as I solo flawless Warlord's Ruin, so you don't have to. As your Hot Wheels father figure, you would know that normally I like to believe that build crafting is for commies. You take your shitty build and get in there. I want to see you bleed, brother. You leave the thinking to the nerds. But during my first attempt at the flawless, I knew that this absolute gorilla would need to undergo evolution to make this work, especially since using the solo operative mod in my eyes would just be applying the bitch sticker. And mama didn't raise no bitch. My blind run had me spending almost 5 hours getting slapped downright silly by the hot local scorn in your area. So instead of suffering more blows to my fragile ego with nothing to show for it but a colder disposition of the world than an Amazon employee, I decided that it was time to take away build crafting from the weebs. I instead opted to dive into my inventory, all while attempting to stroke my beard for an instant IQ boost. You see, I'm a simple man, and before me lay hundreds of different options to lay out copious amounts of death. But throughout all my Destiny career, I've always distilled the violence to a simple formula: shoot, gun, make, kill. After running what barely classified as a thought through the Rylee Reloaded Research and Development Department, I was able to discover that much like every Burger King needs his Burger Queen, Solar was a match made in heaven for this season. Now let me get into the squirtistics for you. Phoenix Dive, best in class ability to provide restoration and make you nigh unkillable unless Bungie places a taken ogre with as much health as a raid boss that will actively hurl you off the map like Shaq accidentally mistaking a midget in a leather coat for a football. Incinerator Snap, because they just don't cook them like mama used to. Healing Grenade, because I'm a man of questionable skills, and this is how I pull the ripcord on death. Ember of Empyrean, killing enemies with solar keeps your restoration buff reset. This is a valuable lesson laden with ancient wisdom for the kids out there. Hurting others is the only way you can make yourself feel better. Ember of Torches, hitting an incinerator snap or laying down some mad ham with your fists will make you radiant. As we'll be using all solar weapons, it'll increase our killing potential twofold. Ember of Ashes, more scorch stacks equals more damage and causes the bosses to witness the full concentrated power of the sun. And finally, Ember of Searing. Killing a scorched target will generate melee energy and dispense a beautiful little grenade buff in the form of a fire sprite. I then pair these bad boys with Ragnhild, Mida Mini Tool, and Dragon's Breath with no catalyst, because I'd rather be waterboarded in kangaroo urine than be sentenced to 50 more games of Gambit. But you've been led astray, bamboozled, misled. You failed the investigation check, and now all of Mongolia will know you have a tiny penis. Here you stand before me, Girthless on Fat Cock Friday. Come on, even Nimbus got the memo. Now, not only did I commit the first sin by actively crafting a build and evading my taxes, I engaged my frontal cortex to make 2 builds. The plan was 1 build for running and the other for damage. The angels were smiling at me. There was wind in my sails, but much like shortly after a couple billionaires went under the sea, I knew everything was soon to go drastically downhill. I always start these dungeons with a spring in my step, a glint in my eye, ready to tackle the world. But over the course of a dungeon, we go from you can call me Spider-Man, the way she parking on my Peter, to Joe shaved his mustache and I might need therapy for emotional recovery. Much like the previous solo flawlesses, I like to give myself little rituals as I go through the motions to indicate whether or not this run will be lucky. In Prophecy, it was sliding off the ball to start the first encounter, and in Warlord's Ruin, it's climbing this mountain in successful hops. Thankfully, Bungie decided to bust out the grease and oiled this entire bitch up, turning every surface that looks like it would be mountable into a non-stick pan as I glided around the map like a looped up ape sex leg ends player. You can tell it's a first run because I am actively fighting every enemy that stands in my way like my current objective is survive. I roll up on one of the Fanatics rejects, ready to dispense some holy Hot Wheels vengeance on this younger brother who was handed the controller. Using my Karnstein armlets to give me restoration on a melee and keeping it active with the Mida mini tool, I was able to sustain myself on a colossal amount of ads peppering my asshole from every angle. Dragon's Breath, being a weapon of a more civilized age, means that the trails it leaves behind are more toxic than a pre-fire team finder LFG post, but thanks to your boy using all his intelligence to make his builds, we were tapped on our reserves. I really put the Walmart in Walmart Jesus, as instead of letting the scorch stacks reload my Dragon's Breath, I commit yet another cardinal sin as I reloaded manually. With this atrocity, I felt the weight of every single one of my ancestors since the dawn of time sigh, and the enemies, sensing my weakness from across the globe, sent out Scorn to instant transmission just in time to lay me clean out. Now, while that gameplay loop was so strong that even Goku wanted to fight it, I finally got the hang of the first encounter, clearing it in about 15 minutes. Little did I know I was about to go off the chain and unleash devastation in my wake. You will see just how disgusting I become by the end of this video. I go from a Project Zomboid survivor trying to survive by eating garbage to the goddamn Doomslayer, managing to clear it in sub 10-minute runs and taking that even further beyond. That doesn't stop me from fumbling the loadout swaps in the rocket launcher reload. Even though my stupid hands and fingers couldn't handle basic and eye coordination, there was little Rathel could do but fall at my feet. Then instead of fighting the visage of a giant badass wish-granting dragon or trying to strike a deal with this devil, the Ahamkara said fuck it, meatball form, and sent me off to the gulag for my crimes. Jail, huh? They finally got me. Well, nothing a little sleight of hand can't get me through. Can't be that tough to
When I was a young man, I had liberty, but I did not see it. I had time, but I did not know it. And I had love, but I did not feel it. Many decades would pass before I understood the meaning of all three. And now, in the twilight of my life, this understanding has passed into contentment.
Guardian, down!
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I may have been the asshole in this situation. I stormed into their house like the wet wipe I am and just started laying down pipe law while they were relaxing on their mountain. Even though us guardians are beings of godlike power, that's fire can literally disintegrate people in seconds, for some reason my jet fuel couldn't melt these steel beams. It appears that the deep state has won again. But little did our New World Order overlords know, I keistered an entire arsenal inside a ye old prison wallet, and when the jailer rolled up, he must have really wished he searched my dirty dungeon. Despite knowing exactly how this counter works, I spent way longer than I'm comfortable admitting being locked up for my crimes. But thankfully, the skeletons of the dungeon were hoarding a Flintstones multivitamin that was strong enough to activate my final neuron. And finally, my entire epic fortnight inside a prison was over, and it was time to move towards an encounter that I can only describe as pure agony.
Every journey begins with a single step. This is step one! Secure the keys! Now, we take Vokuta!
You know, I love that Bungie went all out on this dungeon and gave us exactly the mood and tone we were looking for. I love this scenery, and the skybox is unreal. I know it's just mountains, but this dungeon has so much beauty and is so well crafted that it is just a delight to run through, with fun bosses that for a moment bring me great amounts of peace in this trying Destiny time. With newfound determination, I dash across the bridge and dive into the sewer like the disgusting little rat that I am. And finally, it was time to face what I would like to call the bane of my existence. this. To say that this boss was unpleasant as brushing your teeth, sucking down a glass of orange juice would be accurate. If only the past Rylee knew the kind of emotional abuse this troglodyte was about to unleash upon my mental well-being, I would have suplexed that bitch and let him rot in prison. But that's not how this story ends, my friends, because we need to rise and grind. Now this was going my way. I could feel the battle sense of this arena as I dashed around it like I activated Ultra Instinct, although in a split second could only be described as the lobotomy finally taking effect. My body took over and involuntarily puppeted me into the goofiest death I think I've ever witnessed in this game for no reason whatsoever. No possible way you could even understand the thought process. I jumped into the air and did a phoenix dive only to go gliding off the map. God damn it! As you can see, I did this to psych the boss out. You don't want to let them know your next move. Don't want to become predictable. Now we all know that I'm a baller, a downright felon. The reason they lock me up is because they know that I'm straight vile. Let me in a room with your mother and we about to get nasty. I'm so dangerous that the only threat I pose is to myself because I'm the only thing that can match this unyielding skill. Now believe it or not, this is where the Novocaine wore off. I forgot that Dragon's Breath on the wrong hands can be just as dangerous to the enemy as the Warlock standing in front of it like the fucking donkey that he is. Now I was beginning to understand that my arsenal wasn't up to military standard. I'm not a min-maxer, but for some reason the spirit of efficiency decided to possess me. Upon reviewing this footage, it only possessed me partially. I needed to get my hands on the humble Riptide in order to show the Scorn that they would never survive a single Canadian winter, as stasis is only about as half as cold as your average Tuesday up here. I'm freezing my dick off, Hagrid. I get just enough Crucible engrams to get a Riptide with Field Prep and Thresh. Two perks that I would absolutely have no use for, but for some reason I decided to neglect the only reason I took a Crucible detour in the first place by saying we ball and diving back into the dungeon with a role most players wouldn't even wipe their ass with. I managed to demolish the first encounter, however. Having two loadouts I hot swapped to was a surprisingly simple concept, allowing me to dish out some impressive damage. But I think I realized something in this practice run. Despite having two heavy ammo finders and completely decimating the entire battlefield of all its inhabitants, Uncle Bungie decided that getting ammo was about as reliable as owning a power-colored GPU, as you either drown enough ammo bricks you could stack them up and punch Rolk in the mouth, or you fight like a demon, killing enough ads that it looks like a World War Z zombie pileup, and the best the game can do is 2 farts and a purple engram. I mean, what do they do to the ammo economy, my boy? I went into white gear Vow of the Disciple. You can't even put a mod on the armor. It's got so little modability you'd swear it was crafted by Nintendo. So little resistance, you'd swear it had a Twitter blue check mark. And without a single mod for heavy ammo scout, I saw more ammo than the goddamn Great War, boyo! I lay the first boss clean out, once again escaped the gulag with my AK in hand, and realize in the second boss room that if you go to take down the Scorn on the right for the totems, he will either flip you off as he throws it off the castle, meaning you get one orb, or place it in a perfect path in front of you, and much like your father, that shit will just straight up disappear. Despite being more open and likely to get blasted off the map at Mach 8, the other side is the safer option. But just when I was getting my footing and actually reached a damage phase, a Scorn Raider decided to unleash a Sniper Elite bullet directly into my forehead. Despite suffering greatly at the hands of a taken ogre encounter, it hasn't been only the ogre that has given me a right dicking. The Scorn are trained in the ancient art of wasting your time, as they go invisible and leave a trail you can't hit them in. The only danger the ogre poses is when you start hovering and he decides to show you more speed force than the Flash on crack cocaine. That didn't stop the ogre from using amazing tactics during the DPS phase to take me out by taking a Dragon's Breath blast directly to the face. And while the jets are afire and out of the projectile, running it like a professional linebacker directly into my throat hole. He then commits to the chunky dunk, slamming me into the pavement even further as my corpse is already rotting on the floor. Body wasn't even cold yet. I rushed towards the first encounter, succeeded in my bunny hops on the mountain, meaning whoa, good luck be upon ye. The stars aligned on this run. I was even phoenix diving off the jail cells to land in the wish pools. Not only that, the game took mercy on this humble sinner and gave him enough ammo to kill more than a single ad. I cooked the first boss in a sub 10-minute run. The efficiency I was feeling was palpable. As I entered that 3 a.m. flow state, I made my way to the second boss faster than I ever had before, standing before the ogre at only 16 minutes. I like to consider myself a bit of the scholarly type. I know so much about Destiny that you'd swear that I was an encyclopedia of cringe. I know the detonation timing for Scorch stacks. I know how long you need to stand on a totem to get it to activate all the way down to the exact millisecond you need to stop shooting to get the kill on an enemy based on your weapon type. But believe me when I say that for some reason, Bungie decided to hit me with that Australian netcode, as even though the enemy had a bomb planted in them like a search and destroy lobby, and burning, which by all means should have killed them already, they decided to nut up or shut up as they took your average male experience and said that this may be the worst, most soul-crushing day I've ever experienced in my life, then snapping back back to reality and saying I'm over it. We could all learn a lesson of resilience from this Scorn, as he was simply unfazed by the damage slowly cooking him. He shows me why a shotgun might just be a weapon to surpass Metal Gear, and after I've been dead so long that I'm already shaking hands with God, he decides now is the time to pop like a zit. You gotta be sucking me good. Alright, let's get this bread. You can call me Bikini because of the way I never stay at the bottom. Bungie then judges me about as harshly as Santa does, realizing that I've been a bad boy and I must be punished, only dropping me one ball from the totem. You see, I failed here. It was me. I wasn't adaptable enough to survive. That simple balls not spawning was enough to throw off my game entirely, and because I was in a panic, I forgot to kill the Scorn Raiders guarding the railings. One of them took this absolute monster of a shot and caught me on the rebound. I really hope that the Scorn get together to give my man some dark ether, because that shot was impressive and he deserves a raise. Rathel experienced an intense amount of pain as I delivered the tri-finger palm technique upon them. I straight up casted a domain expansion on his ass. It was so quick there was only 2 hits. I hit him, he hit the floor. I stomped the yard in only 5 minutes of fighting. After witnessing that absolute abuse, I am with the Scorn on this one. I deserve to be locked up for my transgression. But even though I was a demon with perfect swaps and godlike gameplay, that couldn't stop my NPC AI from taking over as I run face first into a spike trap. They may be thinking that I would have taken that into account for the next run, but in true Rylee Reloaded fashion, learning is for fucking nerds. In run 12, I perfectly walk my way up the mountain ritual. Rathel's boss room was some of the most disgusting playing I've ever seen come from these Hot Wheels hands, as I was able to knock his health bar down in a blistering 4-minute run. The devastation unleashed in this arena will be talked about for eons. When Scorn tuck their babies into bed at night, they'll be telling them stories of Papa Rye. But you know your boy. I have done things that would utterly shake the most resilient of warriors to their foundations. Despite that, I still managed to flip-flop back and forth between a being of godlike power to have you ever played this game before. The latter becomes the truth as on my way to fight the ogre, Warlock mode activates and I miss my jump entirely, as the ledge was slightly lower. A slight decrease in elevation is enough to put the fear of God into us of the dress-wearing variety, as that means our jump arc is completely and utterly ruined. There was something that was fundamentally wrong with my build when fighting the ogre that caused the runs to consistently fail, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I left too many opportunities to get shot by using the Mida mini tool. The range of the SMG made it tough to hit acolyte eyes unless I was within fisting distance, and fisting is not really a Papa Rye activity. I needed range to make this go quicker. I looked at popular options for this dungeon and everything was pointing me to Zoom to go shoot Oryx in the nipples. I am terminally poor when it comes to spoils of conquest, meaning the farm would be grueling. So I scoured the internet for good alternatives, and thankfully I found one. Neomuna. Definitely one of the destinations of all time. I talked to the Silver Surfer reject and realized that what I'm looking for can't be found here. I dig through my quest looking for the weapon that will deliver me from great evil, but between the girth and my lack of good planning, I couldn't seem to find the quest in my inventory. Eventually, upon opening collections, I see that I had already claimed it. Epochal Integration. It rolls with incandescent and stats for all. By no means an amazing roll, but this thing is about to show you why you should never overlook alternatives. In the words of a great Destiny player, Epochal is meta. That's the shittiest impression. I'm sorry. 2 shots from this unit of a weapon is enough to turn any enemy into a newspaper. Epochal is meta. I fucking can't. I give up. Just look at the carnage. I die because of my ancient enemy, the humble Scorn Raider, but the potential was there. Zeno, one of my Discord admins, pointed me to a better fusion for the first slot, telling me that the new scatter signal was way better than Riptide. Thankfully, I had enough engrams to get it to drop, but in true Rylee Reloaded fashion, the perks were all sorts of garbage. Alright, listen up, kids, because crusading school is in session. These filthy Scorn have taken up residence on my mountain, and it's time we send them back to hell where they belong. Failure is no longer an option while these squatters ruin my property value. The ogre boss was inventing new ways of killing me. Much like a hamster, I was unable to die in a normal way. Be that Bungie's unreliable totem spawns, Scorn Raiders materializing out of thin air to punch me in the huckleberries, or the ogre sending me into low Earth orbit. There was little I could do to stem the tide of these enemies beating my ass like I owed them money. I pulled out my succession with reconstruction, recombination, believing that the opening shot damage would lead me to salvation, and thankfully, I was right. With these simple changes to the mathematical formula, I no longer felt like I was dazed and confused on the field, and just like in the 10-hour Iron Banner reset video, I strolled into the Jedi Temple and slaughtered those kids. There was still the problem of Papa Rye being dangerous to his own well-being, however, as I could easily fumble the swaps or use the scientific method to figure out what happens to the human body when it reaches reaches peak velocity. Because you see, my friends, it is true. Using a wireless controller is a double-edged sword. The price of unholy aim assist comes at the cost of random disconnections. Here I go. Now I want to raise you a question, my friends. Who would win? An ancient being that's ravenous hunger for fulfilling wishes, who literally bends the fabric of the universe in the search for sustenance, or a wizard with buckshot? Well, let me tell you that it's this fucking mountain. I slipped again, god damn it.
Absolutely no way I'm getting through that. Completely solid. But watch this.
I managed to latch onto a small section of the wall and switch to Dawnblade to begin waiting for my super to recharge. Imagine being a slave to your fate. Kinda cringe, am I right? But because of either the impatience or the autism, I eventually decided I needed to risk it all. There was no way around it. You see, I'm a gambler. Not because I like the dopamine hit of winning, but because I yearn for the feeling of passing on all my debt to my child once I pass away. I leaped from the ledge and flew towards another ledge that looked like it was perfectly landable, as if the mantle feature in this game would carry me to freedom. But Bungie just polished this gymnasium floor, and I slid my forehead right off. Rathel, you filthy rat! In run 10, I put some more wrinkles on the old forehead, as for some reason I decided to go balls to the walls and hit Rathel with Dawnblade to see if the Dragon's Breath Scorch and the Dawnblade Scorches stack. Once again though, I pull a Rylee Reloaded and had different aspects during this phase, causing all of my energy to be sucked clean out of me and leading to my eventual demise. Hey, remember when I said that I was trying new things to improve my killing ability? Improve the efficiency, some might say. Well, for your Hot Wheels father, that shit is a monkey's paw. While experimenting with the Dawnblade Super did wonders and actively made the first encounter go faster, something that I'm very proud of, I was still testing out new ways to improve my abilities. The good old Lumina grapple tech was made to look a lot easier in the training manuals than it is in practice. For attempting to skip the section over the bridge with my dinky little healing gun, I was instead thrown into the void. I managed to make a snappy recovery in the final moment. That's when I got a little brave and decided I needed to try again and now while that expert performance means I refuse to try anything new ever again, while you all weren't looking, I went out and did some mining off camera to get my new Riptide. Thankfully this one actually came loaded with chill clips, so I could see some actual performance. The first encounter is nothing to me now, but dirt underneath my heel. Now that I had finally become confident in myself, I was able to deal a massive amount of damage. The build no longer required Karnstein armlets. I was able to switch to sun bracers, removing the training wheels. Using the Dawnblade method mixed with sun bracers meant Rathel got cooked in a record amount of time. The 4-minute run on Warlock, no solo operative, was now consistent. I took that vigor and energy directly into the next encounter, and to tell you the truth, I'm still not exactly sure how it happened. Call it luck of the draw, or maybe somehow, subconsciously, I was possessed by the spirit of Esoteric, because he saw that your boy was struggling, but no bullet was misfired. The buffs were stacked perfectly, and I entered the gaming flow state. This being the furthest I ever made it, I was cautious as I went past the locus of wailing grief. I even tried to shoot down this government drone, but yet again I ask you who would win. A being that can bend reality, a genocider of species, a slayer of gods, or a bulletproof avian creature. The evidence just keeps on mounting. Stay woke, my friend. Not only did I uncover a vault full of spy cameras, I knew the Scorn were being paid off. For their materialistic views, I knew they needed to be punished. So I vaporized the ever-loving fuck out of them before their masters, Commander Zuckerbot and Musty Muskie, can activate the 5G towers and evaporate my white blood cells. Knowing that they are taken on this mountain, I instinctually sense a taken phalanx and dodge out of the way. Not gonna get me again, Bungie. This is 2024, Rylee. 2017 Rylee would have fallen for this, but no longer. Then it's as simple as committing a tiddlywink of genocide, and after a long battle of learning and failing upwards, finally, we were here. I steeled myself for the battle that was yet to come. Tensions were running high, and I was uncertain of what faced me ahead. One single slip is enough to send me reeling back to the beginning. But here I was anyway, anxious as I danced along the razor's edge of my grand overture, bated breaths taken for the finale. I watched the arena from a distance as I readied my loadout and prepared, because it was time to finish this dungeon once and for all.
In the matter of power, light in the darkness, there is always a price to be paid. Slayer of my kind, I ask you, have you come to make a wish?
I don't think I'm in any position to bargain. I know all about your kind's wishes. Look, I've got enough bad luck already. Last thing I need is this Uno reverse genie shit killing me. See this gun? I understand this gun. I pull trigger, it makes somebody's day on the other end a whole hell of a lot worse. Whatever you're doing, it's just weird. You're weird! Not to mention, I am sick of being teleported every 5 seconds! Now come out here and die like you're part of Shawhan's fire team.
I know what you crave. You are tired. Your willpower fails you. And most importantly, the mask is slipping. How long before the facade breaks and they see you for what you really are? Afraid.
Yeah, so what if I'm afraid? You think everyone doesn't know that? But what am I supposed to do? Open up? Ask for help? You and I both know there's no place for me if I even entertain the thought. Be seen as weak. It's about them and myself. Even if I wanted to, I think I'm long past that point now.
I had a friend long ago. They made many wishes, but I remember the first. Be kind to me. They shouldered the burden of the wishes to nourish me and provide for the surrounding villages. An admirable quality. In her dying breath, she fell victim to that old broken part inside of her. Long thoughts suppressed by her selfless deeds set about by the invading army. Revenge, as the House of Kings stormed the gates. Her lie of wanting benevolence gave way, and in her final moments, she wished only for them to suffer.
Is that all it is? We just make exceptions with ourselves until it's curtains. No, that can't be it. Named it good. I hate how you Ahamkara try to dig your way into my head. All this cryptic shit.
Whether the good has value or not is irrelevant. I suggest, perhaps mayhem. You and I are cut from the same cloth. Slaves to our nature. Now I ask you, Warlock, what do you fear? Wishing on the wrong things? Or perhaps the right ones? Then come and die.
Effin must die, and I am to be the dismantler of his making. Yet with everything we have witnessed, I am more conflicted now than ever. I can't tell you how often I wish there was an easier path ahead of me, a way that overwrites all of the bullshit. With what Heffin said, I often find myself asking the same things. If we truly are slaves to our nature, if suffering is the only absolute, or does there come a point where it ceases entirely? Are we doomed to ebb and flow through the motions endlessly until the bitter end, or at some point do things change? And if there's a chance, am I the one that needs to make it? Can I? Would I even know how to if the opportunity presented itself? Those thoughts twist and turn in my head, but despite everything, I'm thankful that I got the chance to be here with all of you. I used to be directionless and empty, often ghosting through life, hopelessly searching for purpose, without ever coming close to it. I spent so long searching for it without knowing that it's not something you find, it's something that you create. I needed to understand, to know myself, before I realized that the only way I move forward personally is when I turn pain into pursuits. It feels as though there's a fire within me, and if I stray from what drives me, I may burst into flames. But despite the way I self-destruct, I can't help but smile when I think of how much of a gift it's been to know what I was placed on this earth for. The fact that I find comfort in building, creating, and telling stories with my only desires being that people will look upon me with joy and remember me fondly. Comfort in the fact that the missteps along the way didn't make me cruel or cold, at least In the end, I'm still trying. While I'm smart enough to know that there's no shortcuts, no magic tricks, no wish you can make to cauterize the wounds that bleed you out. Why would I waste a wish on an Ahamkara? Fuck that meatball! So what do you say we put another round in the chamber, close our eyes, and make a fucking wish? I strolled into the boss room like my dad works for Xbox, and if these turd smokers try to attack me, I was gonna get them banned. They called my bluff almost immediately, and it was time to engage in Mortal Kombat. You see, not only did I make 2 builds for this dungeon, you've been misled again. You really suck a da dicky at this whole perception check thing. I made 4 builds, unleashing the true Rylee power. They have a saying in the ancient scriptures. First he reloaded, and then he went and Rylee'd all over the place. The 2 builds consisted of Sunshot and the Weenie Hut Jr. Karnstein armlets, so I can consistently have my restoration up when a taken Scion gets within cumshot range. The only thing that really worried me in this encounter is the fact that the hatred guys are wild cards. Sometimes you'll hit them before you can even retreat. They'll do a spinning, fire-foot kickflip and hit you from an ungodly range, and at that point you just have to hope that the transition into an obituary is painless. Thankfully, it's not the toughest thing in the world to avoid, as long as you Princess Fairy float above them or stay vigilant. And now while I'd like to say that this encounter was an epic battle constantly failing upwards, it actually isn't bad at all. I'd say the Locust of Wailing Grief is way worse. If it were up to me, that entire encounter can go ahead and use my wiener as a flute. But with patience and careful playing, there was little that Heffen could do. I was too focused, too well crafted, and with the mods of this season, I was downright nasty. I just took my time and whittled away at the beast piece by piece. In the final stretch, I prepared my final attack by not knocking him into a final stand without a well of radiance as a precaution. And finally, it was here. I stared down Heffen, subjugator of the scorn that came here. Names, vengeance. There was no wish, only the scream of an Ahamkara, being silenced by the flashes of my muzzle and the sound of righteous lead. Thank you all for stopping by this episode of the Rylee Reloaded anime. I poured a good bit into this one and tried my best to make it special for all of you. I want to thank my patrons and anyone who watches, because without all of you, I wouldn't be able to do any of the stuff I do. I'm still working full time in the background, but with your support, maybe one day hopefully I can be around a lot more. So if you'd like to support me, I have a link in the description below for the Patreon and my Twitch. I also have merch down there because it was requested. I just like making designs and I would post them, and people were yelling at me saying, "Put it on a shirt, jackass!" I usually don't like asking for subscribers either, because then I'd feel like a turbo greasy YouTuber, and I prefer just to be a guy who likes making things, but what the hell, I'll chill out a little bit this time.
Maybe give me a little subby under the table, boss?
This video is sponsored by Totally Not a Cat, Demigod in Training, Gabriel Shoot, Austin's Bathwater, Riven's Gaping Maw, Action Jack, Cup Noodle, Bringer of Soup, Aurora, Kel of Foxes, Corvus, Kona Kitsune, Silva Finn, Husky Bonsai, Robert Davidson, Papa Rock, Notice Me Please, Savathun, Shoulder Goblin, Dirt Fed, I'm liking these already, Kieran Armstrong, The Dog Eater, what are you, Dom? Kanan Johnson, Van Gulta, Claude Canvas 95, Centurion Alpha, Zakaz, Arcus, Marshal of the Knights of Reloaded, is there lore expanding? Sunyin, Waffles, I hope there is lore expanding, that's great, Maximilian Bunk, Schwanya East, Tim D, Sigma 85, Spartan of Destiny 2, Disciple of the Hot Wheels Messiah. There's a lot of these. I'm kind of worried there's a cult forming. The Bullet that Killed Kennedy. I keep forgetting about that one. Brother Among Us, Vesper, the Coffee God. Oh, good old Vesper. Mini Scorn Dogs, Rook, Kentucky Fried Crota, 05 Council, Chibi Ding Dong, Sean Kent, Bun Bun, the Hopeless Medic, Tex Does Halo, your local brain damage game powered by Hot Wheels Fury and Spite. Brother, Azerbane. God fucking queef the door. 64. Alea, Kermit Sewer of Slides, Saucy Jose, Isa Joe, Modern Gamer, The Immaculate Horse, Queffers, Perfect Question, Isaac Hartley, Sorako, Wisa Dementia, Chapaske, Hi, I Dropped My Pocket, Hardock, Floodiddledorp, Warlock Jump is CBT, and I think I demonstrated that. Pens King 87, TJ Ryan, Luna, Trans of Genders, Vic, GGC, Master Zai, Ramenless Gold, Shenanigans, Rolk's Third Testicle. We all know the fifth one is where it's at. Spencer Candelila, Skyward Echo, Not the legend. I'm doing my best to do like a Halo announcer here. I feel like it has somehow. The deep state plus power color equals pain for Papa Hot Wheels. Yeah, that animated section, I never learned. I have an AMD card. The power color was an AMD card, and I decided to buy another AMD card, not knowing that AMD is dog water for Blender. Do you know how long that shit took? There's a reason I'm gone. Somebody please send me an NVIDIA card. I'll take a 1050. I suck you. Dornhub Premium. Reject Cloth. Happy. The Unhappy Cat. Darth C. Delta Shell. Marasov Strap-On. I'm gonna have to say that every time, aren't I? I need more horrible names. Sticky Kid 104. See, now that's tame now. We've crossed the border. Ziz Loves Lemons. 4 Omega 4. Exo Warlock. George Neely. Extron. Yeah, beautiful bastard. Preston Rhodes. Nitron. Dark Souls 2 Enjoyer. What a bold thing to say. I like to do. Lalo Salamanca. It was you. Wumpus the Friendless. Wildfire 56. Dr. Dinky. Agenda. Cameron Spoon. Moose Master. Master of Meese. Still love that name. Dran and Bethany Arcana. Dragon Boy SD. Chase Kilday. Fishalala. Zurillin. Vibronius Michael. Ash Incendia. Legend of Swoop. Zariak. Og Stratus. Bilbo. Ahigao Kurimi. Tully. Rylee from Berta. Stephen Wagner. Zabiar. Ibrahim Altwiri. Grumpy Grandpa. Hero. Ixis. Fanbuscus P. I still don't know if I get your name right. Is it Fanbuscus Pie? Shit. Them Dirty Blues. Geo Polichanel. Insert name here. Crompton. Ahmed Al-Bashri. Zombie Fox. Jack Mage. Pathetic Mango. Momo No Legs. Gucci 28. Founder of the Knights of Reloaded. You started something, and I fear there's no stopping it now. Woodman the Splintered. Magneto. Your friend Steven. Sir Depresso. U.S. Navy Squid. Luke Sturch. Enter your name 94. Sharky. Later. Gamma Rad. Cameron Schulz. Rycon 6. Garrett Kane. Demetrius. Pepsi Man. My neighbors are gonna kill me. Magneto. Flat Surface. Cal of Ankle Taking. Uncertain. The Cosmic Essence. I hope you're doing well, man. I haven't heard from you in a while. Arliss McGuire. Zarin King. Sensei Smalls. Mordaunt. T7 Code 99. Jonathan Blaylock. That one hammer Rylee threw into the void, never to return. How much you want to bet that's Lizard? Oh no, I was wrong. It's K Fisher. I'm sorry, K Fisher. I'm just used to those shenanigans. Eamon Smith. Oh no, here's Lizard. Back to back, Hot Wheels held up the toy car to Mattel. After a second of silence, she transmatted it. Rylee Sheldon. Lizard, what are you smoking? Am I just gonna find a Hot Wheels car outside my door? I haven't checked my mail. Oh fuck, there might be a Hot Wheels car. Rylee Sheldon. Azure Knight. Lone Ranger. Stakes. Tekka Sovan. Oh my god, Tekka, I owe you a mug. I owe you a fucking mug. Every time I see your name, it's a constant reminder of my failings. Love you, man. Zerx 14A. Nadian Syrup. X9, 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 X9. Ben Stanfill. XD7228. Kevin Noda. Gamer Weenus. Gamer Weenus gave me a full-size Danny DeVito, and it now resides in my room at work. Sometimes I take him for walks so that everybody knows he's having a good tour of the facility. Other times, we get all romantical. Volkeen. Thruman. Dragon Waff. Hope you guys are doing well. Hot Wheels Enthusiast. Kefnet the Useless. CO Camo 3. Crimbo the Undying. Bogos Binted. Some Marchy Desk Hopper. Xavier Human. And Fufu Akio. Thank you guys for funding my creative endeavors that go off the chain a little bit. Like 3D animation? No, that shit is wild. I sink everything I can from this Patreon right back into it. So if you don't see me for a while, honestly, you guys are amazing. You put up with waiting this long for me to make stuff, and I hope that each and every video repays it in full. So here's to the next one. I've been Papa Rye, and I cannot wait to catch you in the next one.